then it's going to be a problem. Click OK. Now this server is already configured for VPN, for client machines to VPN to this server. I can right click here, go to properties, see what's in there. On the security, first of all, who's going to provide the authentication? By the default, we have here Windows authentication. We can have a radio server. If we have it configured, click on radio server, then configure, then add the radio server. We don't have it at the moment, so we're just going to keep it to the Windows authentication. Authentication methods. What authentication methods are we going to allow? Microsoft encryption authentication version 2, MS Chat v2 is enabled by default. This is what we're going to use. EAP is enabled as well. This is if you want to combine EAP with other authentication methods. CHAP is available as well, like there's a previous version to MS Chat version 2. Unencrypted passwords, clear text passwords, but you don't really want to have that. Allow machine certificate authentication. If you have a certificate, you can use IKE version 2 or on unauthenticated access. Anything here? You can use a pre-shared key as well. If you tick this, you can use a pre-shared key for authentication. Version 4, here we have the DHCP static address pool. Version 6, we haven't got it configured. IKE, for example, if you authenticate through IKE, how many minutes you can have for idle timeout and so on. Nothing here anymore. Login, we don't have anything. Okay, so now we go to the client machine. Windows 7 client. This client machine, if I go ipconfig, that's my address still. Try and ping that server. So ping, before we could 10.10.0.10. It's not going to work now because we're not VPN. We moved on to different network, to the internet. Before we could ping it. So if I go, there we go. Before we moved, we could ping it. Now that we moved to the internet, we can't ping it anymore. Okay, so obviously that policy that we looked earlier, so we can't see it. So if I go backslash lon dc1 share was, no, it won't be able to. This is going to give us error. So we're going to try and connect through First VPN. So we have a IP address. So we have this address 172.31.10.100. This allows us to go to the internet or pretend internet. So from that address, we're going to create a VPN. All I have to do is go open Network and Sharing Center. This is under Control Panel. Yep, it's just telling us this message that network error, we can't connect to the share. Okay, in here in Windows 7, I have to say set up a new connection or network, and then choose connect to a workplace to create the VPN. Click next. You can dial directly or you can use a VPN, use internet connection that I already have. Do you want to set it up? Or I'll set it up later, but it's already set up, so I can just say set up later. And then the IP address or the VPN. What he's asking here is asking for this IP address here that you're going to connect. So 172.31.10.20 is the IP address. So 172.31.10.20. Just going to check again if that's correct. 172.31.10.20. Okay, and then the name, whatever you want to call it. So work VPN. Click next. You can provide username and password here if you want, or it's just going to ask us the next time we try to connect. We create this connection. Okay, it's done. So if I go to change adapter settings here, I should see a two network connection. One of them is my actually real connection, real network interface card. This is a virtual network interface card. Now if I try to connect, I'm going to use a Contoso administrator and the password of password. Click connect. I can save this for the future connection. I'll just click connect. Verifying username. Oh, now we have a error. The reason is because by default Windows is going to try and contact NPS server and for authentication. since we don't have a NPS server for authentication, we have to actually go to the domain controller. It's asking domain controller. So if I access the domain controller, the username that I'm trying to connect with, which is administrator. So in here I open tools, users and computers, and go to users, the administrator. So if I double click the administrator and see the administrator properties, under dial in, the network access permission is controlled through NPS network policy. Since network policy is not configured, NPS is not configured, it's just denying us. So if I say allow connection or allow access, click OK. Now if I minimize the domain controller and go back to the client machine and try again, oh, he's already done it for me. But I'm going to disconnect and then reconnect again. So controls administrator, password or password. Now you can see that it's blue and it says it's connected. So excellent. I'm inside virtually on that network. So if I right click, go to status and then details here, I can see the device name, device type, authentication that we use in MS Chat version 2, encryption that we're using, compression we don't have any, client IP address 10.10.0.203 and the server's IP address 10.10.0.201. So the server will have one IP address, the client will have one IP address. The server will create an IP address for each client that connects to. So now if I try and ping that I couldn't ping it earlier, so if say ping 10.10.0.10, yeah, now I got a reply for it because I'm like virtually sitting on the network. So if I backslash, there's my share. So I can see the contoso policy. Excellent. So now this computer is virtually connected to the local area network. So we looked at to configure user dial-in settings, configure routing and remote access as a VPN server, and then we configured the VPN client, or we created that new connection. So if I go back to one of the slides here, so this client now is sitting virtually on this network. And it's got two IP addresses, one public IP address or one private IP address. So if I go to the client machine, I have disconnected. Let's have a look. Connect again. Open the command prompt. That comes up. If I say IP config now, still got just one IP address, so let's wait for this to come up. For some reason all my machines that were switched off, don't know what happened there, maybe Hyper-V glitch or something. I'm gonna restart them again. That's why that client lost that connection. Yep, we need to wait till this is all ready. I'm gonna pause the video, come back when it's completed starting up. Okay, come back now. So if I go to say IP config, I will see two IP addresses. One that I just got from my VPN server, and one IP address that I've got from I've got physical IP address. Okay, so right click, disconnect from this server, and if I want to connect as another user, say I've got a few users here, so if I go to DC1 and log into that server, password, don't use your password as password. I'm using it for training, but in the real life you have to have a complex password.